Get with me. I deal with reality. Loosen your mind to the truth and don't get mad at me. No politician can give you peace. If you trust Jesus, why do you vote for a beast? Emancipation is long overdue, so it becomes procrastination, because freedom is within you. For some reason we think we're free, so we'll never be, because we haven't recognized slavery. You still a slave, look at how you behave, debating on where and when and how and what master gave.
Hello everyone, and welcome to This Week in Tyranny, a weekly show about authoritarianism, government overreach, and global injustice. I am your host, Conrad Rogas, and if tyranny is not at your doorstep, that's because there's someone in the street keeping it at bay. This is episode 12 of This Week in Tyranny. Today is Saturday, February 25th, 2023. It is Saturday. I usually do it on a Friday. The reason is I was working last night. Late last night I got home. I had to cut a lot of concrete and crack the concrete, remove it for the plumbers to work. And now that I think about it, it has a lot to do with what this episode will be about and what we have to do in life, our job is to do. It's a lot of hard work, especially cutting and breaking concrete, because that's exactly what this is about, actually. The structures that we have built as a human species, our societal structures and institutions, are wrong. They have to be broken. They cannot be rebuilt. They have to be cut and broken, just like I was doing for 12 hours yesterday. It is the same thing. We cannot continue to build up as we are. It's going to require some demolition, some excavation. And that's what this episode will be about. And it will be about militarizing the world. This is what needs to be talked about as far as tyranny. There's really no point in talking about anything else. This is what's going on in the world right now. It is the continued war in Russia, the war in Ukraine, the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia has just passed the 1 year mark of that. And I'll talk about the speech given by President Biden and the Polish President Andrzej Duda in Warsaw. President Biden made that trip to the Ukraine and to Poland. This happened on Tuesday, February 21st. President Biden came to Warsaw and he gave the speech in Poland. And I'll talk about what he said. I'll talk about what the Polish President Andrzej Duda said. But I would just like to say up front, I have nothing against Duda personally. I don't really know a lot about him. I have nothing against Joe Biden personally. So my personal attacks aren't fueled by that I have something personally against them. They just happen to occupy the position that they're occupying, which is the head of the state. So when I call them a coward and a liar, which I will do, that's where I'm coming from. They're occupying that position, and that's what they have to hold the flag for that. So Duda, he begun when he started talking. He's talking about, of course, supporting Ukraine, right? Supporting them in the war. He started off appealing to the Warsaw Uprising, appealing to Solidarność, to the solidarity movement that was this resistance against Soviet occupation after the Nazis were defeated in World War II. So he's appealing to that, the heroism, right, about how we have to get together and help. And those historical instances of heroic resistance, of heroism, they happened after the government was already exiled. The government already went into exile. They already failed in defending the people and their families and their individual property. And if that were to happen today, I would be among those people, those heroes he's talking about, fighting in the street, fighting for their lives, their families. And people like Duda would be inside in the house, like the coward that he is, right? So he's going to invoke that patriotism, those emotions, and it really doesn't apply. It takes some nerve for a president of Poland to invoke those emotions and call upon, draw from that ocean of blood that was shed by the Polish freedom warriors, freedom fighters of the last century, because that's what they were. And to exploit their story just to manufacture public support for the globalist game that is the war in Ukraine. That's what it is. It's a globalist game going on right now. You know, the military that fought the Nazis and the Soviets is not the same military that's mobilizing alongside American troops in Eastern Europe today. The Armia Krajowa, the home army of Poland, that was fighting against the Germans when they occupied and continued to operate underground and battle against the Soviets. That was truly a force for liberty, okay, in those days. But today, the Polish military is a lapdog for the Western power structure, for the United States military, which in itself is a lapdog for the global occult ruling class. All three aspects of that ruling class, the bloodline royalty, the international bankers, and the satanic priest underclass or subclass. These boys and girls with guns should not fool themselves. You don't fight against the Putins, you work for the Putins. That's what's going on in the military today. So it's just especially disgusting when Duda, he invokes that and he wants to appeal to the patriotism, tug on the heartstrings of us, of people like my family who actually died fighting for this country, right? But these bureaucrats and politicians, they have nothing to do with that. They would not be doing that. There's no bravery in that. So for him to big his chest up and he's trying to put bass in his voice to talk about that, it really does not apply. Okay, he's talking about stuff that he has no idea about. Andrzej Duda, he alludes to the Ojczyzna, the fatherland, right? The land of our fathers. And this is all about nationalism. And this is who the military defends. Not the lives of the people, not their liberty, not their personal property. They defend the nation, the flag, the anthem, you know, all that, the institutions. That's who the military defends. And nationalism is a destroyer of freedom, right? It's not the red, white, and blue that makes you American. And it's not the red and white, the flag, that makes you Polish. It's the moral fabric, the individual responsibility, respect for yourself as well as your neighbor. That's what makes you a true American. And that's what makes a real Polish person, a real Polak, right? That is what we talk about when we talk about our nations as something to be proud of. We can be proud of the character of the people of our nation, but that has nothing to do with the government and their military. But our nations have that in common, that we pride ourselves on being an upstanding people of a high moral character. And that's why Polish people are so big on liberty, just as well as American people are. They have that in common. But another thing Americans and Polish people have in common is that their bravery and noble aspirations are misguided. So they are fooled into helping construct the labor camp, the prison, and the torture chamber that is called Earth. What does this mean for the practical application for the war in Ukraine today? And this is like an immediate response to the criticism I get in conversations. Am I saying to just step back and roll over and just turn away from Putin's invasion and just let them take it over? Of course not, right? I'm not saying to run away. No way. But people are talking about, look at the pictures, look at the photos of mothers holding their children as they're dying, and they're saying, well, they're telling me, well, you're saying the politicians are lying and the war is a globalist game and this and that it's planned, but look at the reality. So my response to that is, I am aware of the reality. I'm aware of the terrible reality that is the horrors of war, because once people are at war, all this talk really goes out the window, because you've got somebody there with a gun on the other side pointing a gun at you. So you could talk about the truth and you could talk about morality and the occult globalist class, but when there's somebody there across from you ready to take everything you have, it really goes out the window. I'm totally in tune with that. I understand that. But I do have a practical solution. I have a solution based in reality. So here it is. Uh, the military presence near Russia is what allows Putin to continue the war, right? Because he can justify it to his people, to the Congress or whatever over there, by pointing towards the NATO Western presence in Ukraine and the weapons and technology that are being sent there, right? So here's the solution. The military that's in Ukraine, the Ukrainian military, should take the uniforms off first, right? The uniform is basically marks you for death in the sacrifice ritual that is war. So take off the uniforms, retreat, tactically retreat into the homes, into the villages and the cities. Get off the front lines, because if you're at the front lines volleying attacks with each other, that justifies the leaders of both of the nations to say that there is an aggression that you need to now support. You need to throw more support there to battle the enemy. And it's kind of just proving their point. So really nobody wants to hear this, but they got to retreat to where the civilians are and take off the uniform so that you are just a civilian. And you got to wait for them to come in. Right? In the meantime, teach the populations, all able-bodied men, women, and children, arm them as much as you can. Teach them to make weapons of fire, Molotov cocktails, and train them in guerrilla warfare, and wait for the invading Russian army to come in, and then crush them, because they will have no chance. They will not know where the attack comes from. And in basically the court of public opinion, the eyes of the population, right? Because they'll be recording this. Now you've got the phones, you can actually record this and show them live. It's not just happening in the field on the front line somewhere. Do it in the city. And I know that's going to cost a lot of innocent lives, but this is what needs to be done, right? We already have the terrible reality that is war. So this is how you end it quickly. You're going to force them to shoot at plainclothes civilians, right? All that stuff, the war atrocities, they'll have to be documented now, and they'll force them to do this. And the people doing this, the actual Russian soldiers, you're actually going to now you're going to make them either be completely immoral or expose some humanity and make them question what they're doing. Because now they will be shooting at regular people. They won't be acting in so-called self-defense, right? So that is the real answer. That is how to solve this. Not to perpetuate war forever and not to escalate it to a nuclear war, because obviously that can't happen. So that's the answer. But the leaders, they don't want a resolution to war. They want the proliferation of war. And this is a mistake, the way people ascribe human qualities to the war, right? And this is when the reality is that war is simply a business for them. And the example I'll give is that Biden quoted Zelensky as saying Putin thought that the Ukraine would just roll over, right? And people hear this and they make this mistake of applying human emotions and characteristics to these leaders, right? To these people. For example, that people are saying, oh, now Putin's angry because he thought he would win decisively and it didn't work out for him, so now he's going to be twice as aggressive. And what a grave mistake to think of the geopolitical conflicts as like real interactions between real human beings like you and I. This is not what happens on the global scale. It's incredible naivete and foolishness to see the world's events according to the figureheads we are shown. What I'm getting at is that these people, that we point to the leaders and say this is a struggle between them, this and this leader, this and this general. There are strings behind the puppets, and there's a hand controlling the puppets. But we figure we follow its course according. We follow its course like a TV series or a soap opera, right? And people say Putin's doing this, Biden's doing this. No, he's not doing a thing. Biden isn't doing a thing except advancing the agenda of their masters. Yeah? But People love characters. We seem to get wrapped up in how a character is feeling, what he's going to do, how he's going to change, how he's going to address the problems in his life, right? Or face a given problem. Maybe we are drawn into living our life through them vicariously, through putting ourselves in their shoes and live out through them the things that we cannot live out in our daily life, in our actual existence. Or maybe it's because the reality is too frightening and too lonely. And that reality is that the world isn't the way it is because of the greed or ineptitude of one man, like a president. That the world is the way that it is because of an ancient cult of rulers and dominators, and because of our unwillingness to change it. That is scary. It takes real effort and self-reflection. But instead, it's easy to point the finger at Biden and say we have to impeach him or throw him out, vote him out. The characters are not there for us to actually believe in them as if they're real people. They're there for us to learn lessons from them. So, what lesson can be learned from Duda and Biden's speech and the speech of Zelensky and Putin? Well, Biden said a few weeks ago that the State of the Union is strong. In Warsaw, he said that NATO is strong, that democracy is growing stronger. And what he means by that is that the institutions of authority in the Western world are growing stronger. Yeah? And meanwhile, the grasp of Xi Jinping of China and Vladimir Putin of Russia is growing stronger as well, thanks to the West's aggressive rhetoric. They're both strengthening each other. And the end result is global slavery is going stronger. That is my basic short analysis of what he said, what I take out of that, and the direction that that's going to go is the direction of tyranny. And I wrote this short essay today called The Tyranny of War that I would like to read for you. Here goes. War is a byproduct of government, not human existence or human nature. Conflict over property or natural law self-defense against an act of aggression is resolved through a fight, duel, or battle, but not war. War is a satanic covenant, an agreement made between rulers to resolve a dispute through blood sacrifice. What's worse, these modern-day rulers, political and military authority figures of different nations, have no real conflict. As people die in the streets and fields, behind closed doors they shake hands, whether that is figuratively or literally. They engage in war because it ultimately helps advance both their aims. War always assists in the creation of slavery and never assists the people in achieving freedom. Flags and anthems are for controlling the masses. The rulers know that war is not really with Putin or Xi Jinping or Biden or Zelensky. Their long war is against the people, who hold the power to remove them, and our enemy is authority itself. On top of war being a blood sacrifice by the satanic ruling priest class, the war of United States against Russia through the proxy of Ukraine provides an increase in military presence to prepare to put down potential upheavals in the Eastern European region. As China becomes more involved in assisting Russia, this will militarize the Indo-Pacific region as well. And when the war is over, the military presence, the weapons, the infrastructure will not leave those places. It never does. It will remain there, ready to be activated. And history has shown that while in the beginning, soldiers may fight back a very real external threat, they soon begin fulfilling the role of a global policeman. We are seeing the progression and formation of the global police state. The tyranny of war is one of the tyrant's most powerful tools, because while solutions to the problems humanity faces lie in the free exchange of information, understanding of principles, and adherence to moral principles, that all goes out the window when someone is pointing a gun at you. All of humanity needs healing, but tyranny is a societal sepsis, and those who occupy and invade others are a global gangrene, at which point amputation becomes necessary. So as we put the saw to our own limbs. The political, economic, and religious leaders sit back and watch their power increase. The rich get richer Authorities' threats are the philosophers, the healers, and the visionaries. Authorities' protectors are the police and military men, as well as the dictators and mass murderers they quarrel with. They strengthen each other. In an economic crisis, the rich get richer. As the people lose their homes and jobs, the wealthy can acquire their property for cheap. And in a military crisis, in the same way, the dominators become more dominant. Every bomb and tank sent to the front lines, every soldier carrying them, is one fewer armed defender in the home of their own family, which is where the warriors and weapons belong. That was The Tyranny of War. The reading is a little rough. I just wrote this morning. I had a lot more notes, so this wasn't so informal and off the cuff, but I think the words said in this episode were very important. I didn't want to waste a lot of time. Keep it short and sweet and to the point. Make this video as short as possible so that the people will click on it and so they could spend the time to look through it, because this is very important. Because the tyranny of war is very hard to resist because of how real and physical of a threat it is. It is just like that concrete. It is hard, it is cold, and you can feel it. But we must arm ourselves with the truth and knowledge. That is our saw, that is our hammer, and we can break the structures and rebuild structures of love and truth. Thank you very much for viewing the video. I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.
You either vote for the mumps or the measles. Whether you vote for the lesser of two evils, you vote for evil. Politics and God are not equal, but the education to get on God is really lethal. People have more respect for a holy book than they do for a cow.